Hi. So I hope you are caught up in the book of Esther because I'm just going to jump right in. So yesterday we stopped at a kind of cliffhanger. And so just picking up from there, the first thing I noticed was that the fact that the king couldn't sleep and called for the records of his reign to be read to him as bedtime story or as a yeah, as a bedtime story. For me, like I said yesterday, not once or twice, was not a coincidence. Why would this happen at the same time that Haman was coming to him to ask for permission to kill um, Mordecai? Why did it happen in the same night as Haman's plot? Now, it had been 4 years since Mordecai had uncovered the plot to kill the king. And even though he could have been bitter or resentful, because I can't imagine if I was the one who did something like that and I wasn't honored, but he just kept on doing what he was doing, going to the city gates to do his work, looking out for his cousin Esther. And it turns out that this was divine oversight. So it took 4 years for him to get his reward. How many times, I had to tell myself, how many times have I gotten upset or, disappointed or felt a bit despondent when something that I'm done isn't recognized, especially maybe at work or, things that you do for friends and family. But somebody waited 4 years and it was divine oversight because there was a reason, a bigger reason for it. Listen. Anyway, what's more fascinating to me, or what was more fascinating to me, was just that as the king was wondering what to do, to honor him, Haman walks in, tries to get permission to kill him, but obviously he never got a chance to do that because that wasn't the place all the time, right? And then he obviously was thinking that he was the one being honored, so he quickly puts it, I'll come back to Mordecai, do this, do that, and he's like, right, now go and do all of that for Mordecai. So imagine that he's not only had his plans overturned, but his pride is torn to shreds because he has to be the one who would lead a parade honoring the man that he just tried to kill. That is mind-blowing, right? And I just had to take a moment to celebrate his humiliation because I could not just imagine how he felt. Now, there were far too many coincidences in this book, like I said, to just not notice God's fingerprint all over it. Yes, his name is not mentioned, his hand cannot necessarily be seen, but how else would Haman, after having his plans to kill Mordecai freakishly sabotaged, found himself exposed as the one behind the planned genocide of the queen's people? And as if it wasn't even bad enough, he tries to beg for forgiveness and then falls on the couch where the queen is. The exact moment that the king walks back in and sees him and like, oh, are you trying to molest my wife? And bam, that was his end. The king, now, so remember when I was saying how this king didn't seem to make up his mind without consulting someone or asking someone? This was the first time I saw him actually not ask anyone. He said, you know what, take this guy out and kill him. So he didn't ask anybody, do you think I should kill Haman? So he did. And guess what? He got killed. He got impaled in the same gallows that he erected for Mordecai's death. Like, let's leave coincidence, so maybe once, twice, but when it's a series of coincidences, it can just never be. We just have to attribute this to the God of glory, the one who sits up high and is looking and is just, he's like, okay, I'm not going to put my hand because these people, but he is, putting things in place. I had to give it up to God in this book. I really did. I won't even lie. Now, that wasn't even the worst thing. So bad luck and all around for Haman. So he gets killed on the same gallows that he wanted to kill Mordecai on. And guess what? Mordecai is given his position and his inheritance as well. That's so crazy. All would have been well, but the irreversible edict of the king against the Jews was still a problem, because all these things were like applause, everybody clap, go to bed, but that was not the end. Remember that Haman had made the king sign an edict that basically commanded a genocide against the Jews. But then he goes to, now this is another time where the king, okay, king, what can we do? Do you know what he does? He just gives his signet ring to Mordecai, who's now second in command, and to Esther, and say, you know what, write what you will. I can't overturn this because that's not the way of the Medes and the Persians, but you do what you need to do. And they came up with a brilliant plan that allowed the Jews to defend themselves. And the brilliant plan they came up with saved the Jews and moved them from a marginalized people. Remember, because they were kind of marginalized in that place, to a very powerful people in the land. So much so that people were now converting to become Jews because they believed that being Jewish gave them security against this new edicts by the king. I thought that was so amazing. Now, did you notice that when the Jews went ahead, with their plan and killed their enemies, even though the edict said they could take plunder, they didn't take any of the plunder, they left it. I found that really interesting, right? And I thought about how, remember some of their ancestors, the first person to bring calamity or death, Achan, where he went and took the plunder from the very first battle, and it turned to be out to cause a plague and all. And then even Saul, because even remember when they fought the Amalekites and God said, don't keep any plan, and Saul did. I said, oh, the people asked him to. But here, the people, perhaps they had heard about these stories and were like, we're not even trying to anger God. So we're not taking any plunder. So I thought that was actually quite commendable of them. They probably did this to honor God. Now, here's what I learned about God. The one who seemingly was silent in this book about in these chapters. Even though it's easy to think that Esther and Mordecai were the heroes of this story. Now, I read this book again because I attended a Bible study a few weeks ago, and the conclusion was like, we always say, oh, the book of Esther, but this was really about Mordecai. Think about how Mordecai just became the hero. So yes, also when you think about it, Esther was a catalyst for Mordecai's success and his promotion and all of that. So it may seem like, oh, Esther and Mordecai, but the true hero of this story was God. God was the one who was working behind the scene at every single turn. And one of the things that struck out to me was how God relieves sorrow. So in chapter 9:22, the Jews got relief from their enemies, and their sorrow was turned into joy and their mourning into a day of celebration. This is what God is willing to and able to do in situations where we find ourselves in trouble and in sorrow. This is what God does, especially when you don't see him coming. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed the book of Esther like I have. It has been such an amazing, reliving of an old story. And yeah, that's the end of our 35th book. And tomorrow we will conclude the book of Ezra. If you remember, we haven't done the later part of Ezra. So tomorrow I'll be sharing lessons from Ezra 7 to 10. And I look forward to seeing you here. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. Bye.